From here starts the speaking test. This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place online in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate's name is Ray. The candidate's number is 0143251. The examiner is Mehnu Shafi. The examiner number 443533. Good morning. My name is Mehnu Shafi. Would you please tell me your full name?
Hello, good morning. My name is Rei de Leon Paiva de Paulo.
What can I call you?
Ray.
Sure. Can I see your identification, please?
Yes. Sure.
Thank you very much. We can now get started with the first part of the exam. In the first part, I will ask you some personal questions. First, I'd like to ask about your job. What do you do?
Okay, thank you for your question. I studied civil engineering, but now I'm working with railway engineering.
Do you like your job?
Yes, I do. It's quite challenging, but it's always room for improvement, but I quite like it.
What job do you think you will be doing in 5 years?
That's a very good question because 5 years ago, um, I was graduating, so I didn't know what I would do in the future. So I will continue working. Let's see what the future can bring to me.
Now let's talk about mirrors. How often do you look at yourself in the mirror?
That's a funny question. Um, I would say every month, every day at least once while I'm brushing my teeth, but not that often. I'm not that type of person that would look at the mirror all the time. I'm not that. Um, I'm a bit shy actually.
Do you often buy mirrors?
Um, to be honest, I don't remember the last time that I bought a mirror. I don't think that I ever did.
Do you think mirrors are a necessary decoration?
Yes, I think so. Probably if you have a nice house and then you can simply have a nice mirror on your living room, it can fit there. It depends on your organization. Some people would say feng shui. Uh, I don't know much about it, but I think that would be nice.
Now let's move on and talk about public transport. What kind of transport do you prefer to use?
Well, right now I'm living in the middle of nowhere in Africa, so the only means of transportation is by car. But when I lived in a big city, back then in Portugal, I would use the underground system, sometimes the bus. I would go by bus.
Can you compare the advantages of planes and trains?
I'm actually a railway engineer, so I love trains. Those are the best ones for me. But from time to time, especially for which the distance is considerable, we should consider planes because they are quite efficient and can get us a bit faster than trains.
Thank you very much. Now we can move on to the second part of the exam. In the second part, I will give you a card with a topic and you should talk about this topic for 2 minutes. Before that, you have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes to help you if you wish. So now you can take a paper and a pencil to make notes, and please let me know if you can see the cue card now. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You should talk about a prize you want to win. Now you have 1 minute to think about the topic and make notes, and your 1 minute starts now. Okay, now your 1 minute
Okay.
is over, and you may talk about
Okay.
the topic for 2 minutes. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so now your 2 minutes time starts.
Okay. I need to start. When I was a young boy, my father would really incentivize me to continue studying. Uh, and that's the reason that took me to go to university and to be a civil engineer in the first place. Since 4 years, I'm working in a big company in Portugal, and right now I'm living in Africa, which is a great challenge for me. So part of our business is to construct, of course, and to maintain a track here. And from time to time, we have bonuses, and it depends on our performance. So I'm always looking forward for new challenges in life, and I understand the more we practice, the better we can get. So in this way, I'm really looking forward to a new bonus now for the conclusion of a project that I'm doing now, and I'm really looking for it. And the way that I can get it is by really understanding the stakeholder, identifying the stakeholder here. And when you do a good job, my company is a good company for it. They will really give you conditions to continue going in your career. So I really appreciate those type of challenges. What else can I? Yes, that's why. And then I really like to travel, so I am really looking to get this money of my bonus and really prepare a good travel, probably to Canada. That's the place that my brother lives now, and I hope
Thank
that
you
I
very
can spend.
much. Now your time is over, so I stop sharing the screen and we can move on to part 3. In the second part, you talked about the prize you want to win. And now in part 3, I would like to ask you some questions related to this topic. Do you think that it's good to have competitions?
Um, I believe that our system is better when we have competition in such a way. On the other hand, too much competition is not good because the society should work in the way that we work together as a team, and we would get better in this way. Here in my company, I understand that if we choose some people to be in certain positions and then we create some competition between them, it's a good thing because we are going to create such a dynamic that will allow us to go further and improve a bit more.
Okay.
On,
And do you also believe that if the employees have some accomplishments or they make some accomplishments, this will also have some benefits for the company?
it's actually a compromise between the employee and the company itself. Of course, if the company is healthy in the way that can make profit, the employee will have uh, more opportunities in the future, and it's a partnership between the employee and the company itself. So if the company creates habits and good opportunities like mentorship and other type of competition, then employees can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. And so, how can the company reward some hardworking employees at work?
As I said before, my company benefits the good employees by giving them bonuses. But on the other hand, it can be very tricky because um, it can create we can be biased if we work for bonuses, especially when we prepare financial statements. We probably at some point we will be willing to say that our results were actually better than the ones that we actually did just to reach that certain bonus. And especially when we are preparing our annual statement and we need to close that certain year, we can be biased in a way that we will report that we made actually better than we actually did. So it's quite tricky, but a good environment that we can create a weekly goals for our employees, and then they go there and they meet those goals is kind of good for our company in the way that
Thank
we
you
are going
very
to involve
much.
for a challenge.
Now your time is over, and this is the end of the speaking test, so we can move on to the feedback part. But before I get started with your score in each criteria and your overall band score, Ray, I would like to give you a general idea of your performance in the different parts and talk about what exactly you're expected to do on exam day, and then we can talk about your score. So, first to get started with part one. As you know, part one in IELTS speaking is about short questions and short answers, which means that the examiner will ask you some different questions in 3 different topics and you give some short answers to them. You did well generally in the first part, but one thing you should pay attention to is to always provide explanation. In the first part, even though your answers are short, they cannot get too short. Like you cannot give a one word or one sentence answer. You always make sure to provide some explanation, and it's better to include like 2 to 3 sentences. For example, it can be about your direct answer, some explanation, and an example. And by example, I mean more details. That's a good structure in part one. Suppose I ask you, do you have a big house? If you say, yes, I do, I have a quite big house, that wouldn't be enough. And you did it for like a few of your answers in part one. So you try to just give a little bit more of explanation. For example, instead of saying, yes, I do, I have a big house, I could say, yes, I do, I have a spacious apartment. And I sometimes invite family members and friends over to have a meal together. Besides, we tend to watch some films and we have a blast when we do that. So that can be a good answer in part one. Because first I said yes, then I explained about my house, and then I gave the example of the people I invite over, the activities we do together. That's a good answer in part one. You just make sure to maintain this explanation, this development part in the first part. This is about part one. In the second part, you did well. You had no problem because the most important thing in part two is to cover your time, which means to talk for the 2 minutes and not less than that. And you did it. So even if you run out of ideas, even if you don't know what else to say, you just try to keep talking, because this is how you can make sure you have a good topic development in part two. And when the examiner says that your time is over, that's a good sign, which means that you have covered it. But other than that, you covered the bullet points. I mean, you gave some relevant explanation about the bullet points, about the cue card. And as long as your answer is related to them, you are good to go. But you always make sure to pay a lot of attention to the keywords in the cue card, like what exactly you should talk about, and the tenses, because many candidates are likely to make mistakes with the tense. You're talking about something in past, then you use present tense, or the other way around. So you just pay attention to these little things, but generally speaking, you did well in the second part. Talking about part three, as you know, in the third part, you should give longer answers because the questions are longer. I can't really tell you how many sentences you should include. You just need to give longer answers compared to part one. And you did it. You gave me some longer answers, you provided more explanation, so there was no problem with your topic development. You just had more self-repetitions in part three because some questions are similar. Like you said, okay, as I mentioned before, these are the benefits that my company provides. So you were like, okay, I already answered this question. It happens in the third part. Many questions are so similar. And in order to have a better brainstorming, because sometimes you have just already answered the question, you can simply fake your answer. You can simply add some information which may not be true or which may not be what you really think, but you say it because you want to have a better brainstorming. But I will give you more explanation on this strategy a bit later. So this is about the structure of the test in which you generally did well. And this brings us to the first criteria, which is your fluency and coherence. Regarding your fluency and coherence, the two things that I already mentioned, your topic development and the structure you follow, these are evaluated in the first criteria. And I can say that, as mentioned before, you generally know the structure and you can have a good topic development. The only change you should make is to make sure you provide some explanation in part one in all your answers. It shouldn't get too long, but it shouldn't be too short. There should always be some elaboration on the ideas. And in the third part, you can just refer to a better variety of ideas and not to have self repetitions. However, other than the topic development and the structure, if you have hesitations, self-repetitions, and self-corrections, you would lose mark in this criteria. And you didn't have many hesitations. You had more of self-corrections and self-repetitions. Now, what to do about it? What can you do in order to be able to answer all the questions, not repeating yourself, or having a better range of ideas to talk about? As I mentioned before, Ray, you can fake your answer. This means you can lie a little bit. Like if I ask you to describe your house and you don't know how to describe your house, but you do know how to describe your friend's house, then describe your friend's house as if you're talking about your house. Because the examiner doesn't really know what the truth is, what you really think, or what's going on your mind. So you just say something which can help you get a better score or have more to say. Suppose you're asked a question about which you have no information or you have no vocabulary, and that's fine. That happens. You just need to be smart enough to think to yourself, okay, how can I link the given topic to a topic that I am better at? And you do it. For example, if I ask you, what do you do to focus while reading books? Maybe you understand the question, but you don't have much to say. Like, I don't do anything. I just open my book and I start reading it. You can give this answer. As long as you explain about how you don't know and how you don't do anything, that can be a good answer. But maybe if you lie, if you just say something else, you would have more ideas. Like, I'm sure when you're going to the exam center, there are some topics you wish to get. Like you say to yourself, I wish I get this topic because I know how to talk about it. It doesn't matter if you don't get that topic. You just need to know, you just need to link the given topics to those that you are better at. So if I don't have good vocabulary about reading and focusing, but I do have good vocabulary about eating, for example, this is how I answer this question. I say, well, in order to concentrate better when reading books, I should eat well. This is because when I eat in moderation and maintain a balanced diet, my brain function boosts and I can focus a lot better. So that can be a good answer in part one. Even though I was lying and I don't need to have a good diet in order to focus better while reading, I gave this answer because it could bring me more ideas, more vocabulary, and fewer self-repetitions. Because I'm talking about some, new information, piece of information. You can also do that. This helps you with better fluency, fewer pauses, and a better vocabulary range. Now, finally, talking about the last thing you should pay attention to in this criteria, which is about the range of the connectives and discourse markers. If you only use very simple connectives, you just use and, so, but, because, you can't get more than a 5 in your fluency and coherence. So you just need to add a better range. You use the word that's why and on the other hand. This is great. So why not using more of these connectives? Like you also use the word even though. So you can, for example, use besides instead of and or plus. Instead of but, you can use however. Instead of because, you can use as or since. Instead of so, you can use therefore. Or any other connective and conjunction you can use naturally and correctly. You just add it to your sentences. I'm not talking about overusing them. I'm just talking about a better range, a natural use of a better range. This is how you can mark up. So because of everything I mentioned, you got a 6 in your fluency and coherence. You just need to have a better topic development in part one, fewer self-repetitions in the third part, and a better range in your connectives if you want to get a higher score. Now talking about your vocabulary, which is the next criteria, your lexical resource. In your vocabulary, you got another 6 because you were able to talk about the familiar and unfamiliar topics, and you generally paraphrased, and you use some fillers and boosters. These all matter. For example, you use words like room for improvement, what future brings, in the middle of nowhere, to do a good job, to go further, make a profit. These were some good terms you used. You also use some synonyms. I'm talking about paraphrasing, like challenging, from time to time, efficient, to look for something. So you are expected to use a good range of vocabulary. You are expected to paraphrase, and paraphrasing means not to repeat what you hear in the question. You try to use some synonyms. You did it, and you also use some fillers and boosters to fill up the gaps. That's why you got a 6. But to get a 7, you should use more collocations and some idioms. Collocations, you know, the words that go together, like I use to have a balanced diet. Have a balanced diet is a collocation. But if you use 1 or 2 idioms, then it can even help you better to get a higher score. Talking about your grammar, in your grammar you got another 6 because you mostly use a mix of simple and complex structures. To get a 7, you should use a range of complex structures. What are these complex structures? You mostly use relative clauses when you use which, that, who in the middle of your sentence, and subordinate clauses like two-clause sentences. If you want to get a 7, you should use more of conditional sentences and more compound sentences. You were actually using, like you use conditional sentence once, but 0 conditional. Try to use more conditional sentences, and the more connectives you use in your sentences, the more compound sentences you would be making. So that also helps you with your grammar. You didn't make so many mistakes. That's a good thing. Just a few. For example, since 4 years, since 4 years ago, I have been working as, try to make a better use of present perfect and present perfect continuous. It shows the examiner you know a range of tenses, and tenses can also help you get a good score in your grammar. You said looking forward to something. When we have competition, when we have a competition, a good environment, that means a good environment that where, or a good environment in which, it's better to use this relative pronoun for that because it's a place. So this is all about your grammar, and the reason why you got a 6. You can get a 7. You need more complex structures. I mean, conditional sentences and compound sentences. And finally, in your pronunciation, you got another 6 because your speaking is clear to understand, but you did have some mispronunciations. And like, for example, the word employee, company. But make sure to fully clearly pronounce the words, because at times it gets unclear how you're pronouncing the word. Be clear with your pronunciations. I'm not talking about like speaking very slowly. No, just clearly pronounce the words, like how I'm talking to you. It should be clear and it shouldn't cause any strain to the examiner. So your overall band score in today's test is a 6. I believe you have the potential to get a higher score as you have time for the test. You have time to practice. But in the time you've got, Ray, it's better to focus more on the first and third criteria. These can mark you up faster based on your time. It's better to work on your fluency and your grammar, because in your fluency, you have a good topic development. You just didn't know some details about the structure of the test, and now you know it. And by adding a few more connectives to your speaking and having fewer self-repetitions by applying the technique, you have the potential to get a 7. Even better than that, in your grammar, it's even easier for you to get a 7 because you are using these complex structures. You just need more connectives, more compound sentences, and more conditional sentences. That's how you can easily get a 7 in your grammar. If you get 2 7s and 2 6s, your score would be a 6.5, and that's your target score. Now, do you have any questions?
Yes, probably. On the part 1, would you stop me if I started developing too much? on the part one?
The
If
examiner has to stop you because there are three different topics. Part one is not in a way that the examiner interrupts to ask you further questions or they don't want to challenge you. But if your answers get too long, yes, we have to stop you because we should ask you the next question. So it's better to just shorten your sentences.
because I can easily go out of topic on the first one.
Mhm.
Just
If you
sharing.
want to go, if you want to go off topic, that's also another strategy. If you want to go off topic, try to do it in the second or third part because you have more time. In the first part, if you want to do it, be very smart and do it quickly because first give the answer, then go off topic. Otherwise, the examiner would have to stop you and you have not even talked about the question itself and your answer would be irrelevant. So don't risk it if you can't do it well.
That's my concern on part one. I think I know that on part three I can simply go off topic and I can be talking about society and all these concepts. But
Mhm.
with the question as simple as describe your hometown. Okay, has buildings and then cars, and then you can add a bit more. Maybe play a little bit with the past, with the present, and do some complex sentences
Mhm.
on the first part. But it needs to be trained because the questions are so simple that they are almost yes or no. So, but I'll continue working on that one. And thank you so much for your feedback.
You're welcome. So yeah, you just need to get more practice because now you know what exactly you should do. You know the structure, you know your weak and strong points. You just record yourself at home, listen to your voice, and practice a little bit the strategies and maintaining the range in your speaking. And yeah, so if you have no other questions or doubts, then I can say goodbye to you. But before I do that, I was wondering if it would be okay for you if you share the video of your test on our YouTube channel.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So I wish you best of luck with your test. It would also be a good idea to book another speaking test like a few days before the real test, just to see how your score has changed. Now, if you have no doubts, then I say goodbye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice time. Bye bye.